I'm going to start here with the distance formula as if you really wanted to know the formal definition. If A is at x1, y1, and B is x2, y2 are points in the coordinate plane, then the distance between A and B is AB. The distance A to B is equal to the square root of the quantity of x2 minus x1 squared plus the quantity of y2 minus y1 squared. Lo and behold, the Pythagorean theorem. This is what we're looking at here. Pythagorean theorem, a lot of people know this. They're like, this is the only thing I learned in 8th grade. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. But that's only true if you're in a right triangle. That's only true if A and B are both legs of that right triangle. And C is the hypotenuse. What does that mean? That means that this right here, I don't know, A could be, not A, but A could be 3. Maybe B could be 4. And you can find how far it is from, from here to here. I don't like to call things from here to here. I like to say this is A. This is going to be point A. This is going to be point B. This is going to be point C. So here AB is 3. B to C on that line segment is 4. And from A to C is, I don't know, some distance that I don't know. A distance. Some distance. I don't know. Some distance. And I can say, well, if we know A to B is 3 squared plus BC is 4 squared is equal to my distance C squared. Now if I were to solve for this distance C, and I'm getting tired of saying distance C, I'm not going to call it C. Matter of fact, I'm going to change the letter to D because it just sounds better. Distance D. I'm going to change this one to distance D squared. Because A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Actually, I actually like my letters to be on the left-hand side. So I'm just going to flip-flop this thing around a little bit. Let's see what it looks like. Now I have D squared, my distance squared, is equal to 3 squared plus 4 squared. Now I'm going to solve it. You know what I really don't like? I don't like squares next to my letters. So I'm going to take the square root of this side so I can get rid of the square, because they're inverses. And whatever I do to one side, I do to the other. So now I have, this is gone. They cancel out, essentially. And now I'm left with, they do, not essentially, they actually do cancel out. They negate each other. By negate, I mean they're the inverses of each other. So now I have D is equal to 3 squared plus 4 squared. The square root of 3 squared plus 4 squared. That should look a little bit familiar. Just a little bit. That the distance formula was AB, or the distance, x2 minus x1 squared plus, the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. This looks very familiar. How far is it from here to here? It's literally x2 minus x1. How far is it from here to here? It's y2 minus y1. So instead of saying 3 or 4, it's asking me from here to here and from here to here. The Pythagorean theorem is little more than just the distance formula in disguise. Now, I know it's going to irk some people to not finish it. But we're just going to keep going forward. No, we'll finish it. So here, 3 squared is, D is equal to the square root of 3 squared is 9 plus 16. That is equal to D is now equal to the square root of 25, so D is equal to 5. So then the distance formula, and I'll write it as this: D is equal to the square root of x2 x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. The important thing here is this: every time you use the distance formula, you want to write it out. The reason being is so that you don't make mistakes. You don't want to be making mistakes when it's just plug and chug. It's really just follow the steps all the way through. So you want to make sure that you show your steps all the way through. And now it's just as simple as the midpoint formula before, and we're just going to go through. Let's take a look at this problem here. So here's our distance formula. The square root of the quantity of x2 minus x1 squared plus the quantity of x2 minus y1 squared. So it tells us our school is 4 miles east and 1 mile south of your apartment. A recycling center where your class is going on a field trip is 2 miles east and 3 miles north of your apartment. Estimate the distance between the recycling center and your school. Now, the pivotal part here is your apartment. So here, that's where we will begin. We're going to begin at our apartment right here, or your apartment, my apartment. And my school is 4 miles east and 1 mile south. This is the school. The school S at 4, -1. I also know that the recycling center where your class is going on a field trip is 2 miles east, 1, 2, and 3 miles north. 1, 2, 3. And that will be R, the recycling center. X is 2, 3. So a couple things that we do need to know. East is to the right, north is up, west is to the left, and south is down on a two-dimensional plane. So then it wants to know the distance between the recycling center and the school. So it wants to know this distance. To do this, it's going to use the formula. They give us a formula, I'm going to use the formula. And so with that, I'm going to say this is going to be x1, y1, x2, y2. Does it matter which ones are 2's and which ones are 1's? No, it does not. But since America, I read from left to right in the English language. So I go from left to right and I run into the R first. That's how I choose. And so all I have to do is find the distance. I am looking for an estimate But we're not going to round until we get to the very end. And when we do, we'll round to the nearest 100ths. 2 decimal places. So write out the entirety of the equation. The distance is equal to the quantity of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. From there, substitute. Okay, what is x2? x2 is 4 minus 2 squared plus y2 is negative 1 minus 3 squared. It is important that you put the negatives. So if it's negative, negative, you put it in there just as it is. Here we don't have that problem, but we still are left with 4 minus 2 is 2 squared plus negative 1 minus 3 is negative 4 squared. That's my distance so far. And now you're going to be left with the square root of 2 squared is 4 plus 4 squared, negative 4 squared is 16. That gives us the square root of 20. That is equal to, well, here it does want an estimate. So at this point, I'm going to put this into my calculator. Pull out your handy dandy calculator. Pull out your handy dandy calculator. The square root of 20 is approximately 4.4721 decimal. And so D will round to be 4.47 to the nearest hundredths. And that's our estimate. It's a bad habit to break, but please do not circle your answers. It's a bad habit to break, but please do not circle your answers. The reason being, as you go further on and you're taking an AP test, if you circle your answer, you're going to lose a point. So I understand it's a bad habit to break. I still do it sometimes. Try to break it. But 4.47 is our distance. Distance formula. We're going to do it 100 times.